West Indies Cricket, Caribbean Cricket Podcast. West Indies Cricket, Caribbean Cricket Podcast.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. I'm one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, Machel and Santokie, and with me as ever is my partner in crime, Santokie Nagilendran. Santokie, how you doing?
Yeah, all good, Mash. Hope you're doing well. I know it's been a weekend of mixed emotions for you, as keen viewers of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast will know. Mash's second favourite team, India, against all odds, have triumphed in the Champions Trophy. So, Mash, I know you're out to celebrate after this, but we're not here to talk on that, Mash. We're here to talk, more importantly, about the regional championship, and specifically a massive game that took place between my side, Guyana Harpy Eagles, and your Jamaica Scorpions. Guyana won by 214 runs, which most people would say wasn't a shock. But what was shocking was Jamaica were bowled out for 44 in the first innings. 44 all out, the 12th lowest score in the history of West Indies regional cricket. Jamaica's lowest ever score in a regional game. The previous low was 47 runs made in 1896. Mash, if you look at the scorecard, to put it into context, Javel Glenn scored 5 runs. He was the top scorer. Brandon King made his comeback, was the second highest scorer with 4 runs. And it's abysmal reading. And Mash, so I think it's only right we talk about this game and what it sort of means for Jamaica cricket, because just looking at it, since that 2020 season when, Bono and Blackwood piled up the runs and Jamaica had a decent season, since then, they've either finished bottom or second to last in the regional championship. There seems to be a lot going on behind the scenes. And then when you add into that fact that Jamaica don't have a CPL franchise and sort of everything going on with the lack of hosting games, I know they've won a Super 50 in the middle of all that, but that seems that it was in spite of everything going on rather than because of it. So, Mash, as the expert on Jamaican cricket, just talk to me. What does the 44 all out? Does it have a wider context in terms of how far cricket has fallen in Jamaica?
Do you know, it's a difficult one because I think we have to place it first in the context of, remember, because it was only a short while ago that they reached the Super 50 final. But obviously, John Campbell and Ray Marifa decided they didn't want to play it. But they did make the Super 50 final. And a couple of people messaged me after the 44 all out saying, what's going on? Like, is it the coach's fault? But the coach, which is Robert Haynes, was the coach when they made the Super 50 final. So I can't kind of do the knee-jerk thing and go, well, it must be the coaching staff's fault. But then overall, in terms of the West Indies Championship, they've been down bad for ages. Like, this isn't a what am I trying to say here? This isn't some random performance here where it's like, oh, why are they so bad? They were down bad last season and the season before that in red ball cricket. So I think it's a wider malaise in red ball cricket. I text a couple of friends of mine and said to them when Jamaica were batting in the second innings, I said, is this really the best we've got in the region? Is this really our best 11? Now, of course, John Campbell wasn't playing in this match. Not that I'm saying he would have made major difference, but he's certainly one of the more experienced batters. He wasn't playing in this match. And it wasn't a pitch. Well, I think what makes this performance all the more disgraceful is it's not even like it was a pitch which should have been 44 all out. Guyana, when they batted, made, how much did they make? 339. Then the second time Guyana batted, they made 193 for 3 declared. And even Jamaica in the second time round did make 274. So it really paints into context just how ridiculous the 44 all out was. Now, what I will say, this is my particular, obviously when I say this, maybe I can't get back into Jamaica this summer, but I'll read you the top 6, Santokie. This is Jamaica's top 7, in fact. O'Day McCarthy, Kurt McKenzie, Brandon King, Jermaine Blackwood, Javel Glenn, Brad Barnes, Aldane Thomas. Now, when you hear that top 7, okay, yes, there's King in there. Yes, there's Blackwood. And yes, technically, you have to argue that Kurt McKenzie is a West Indies international. But that top 7 ain't striking fear into anyone. That top 7 sounds as down bad as the CCC top 7.
Hey, where's Leroy Lugg, man? Where's your boy?
So Jamaica are down rotten. And do you remember, Santokie, in the press conference earlier this week with Darren Sammy, do you remember that one of the questions posed to Sammy was, how comes there's no Jamaicans in the test team? And when I heard the question, I was thinking, wait a minute, what? What do you mean, how comes there's no Jamaicans? They don't deserve to be any Jamaicans in the West Indies test team. Unless you're talking about maybe throwing a Hail Mary for Brandon King, and maybe there's an argument to say that John Campbell will come back in if Mikael Louis is under threat. But you can't. This is where the kind of parochial kind of what am I trying to? I've lost my word here, but when you kind of look in the insularity of, well, should my countrymen be in the team? What about there's none of my countrymen? If your countrymen are rubbish, they don't deserve to be in the team. And the 40 speaks to piss poor standards.
Yeah, no, and I think Marquino Minley summed it up after the match when he said it wasn't a 44-1 pitch, which I think is fair to say. But I went back and watched the highlights, Mash, and it was poor shot selection. I mean, the first inning, Jermaine Blackwood tried to loft one over, got bowled, clean bowled. Javel Glenn got bounced out by Ronaldo Ali Mohammed. Now, Ronaldo Ali Mohammed's a good up-and-coming bowler in a Guyana setup, but he was looking like Michael Holden at Sabina Park for that first innings, bouncing out every man. So it was poor application, and as you said, it points to sort of wider conundrum within Jamaican cricket when it comes to red ball cricket. So, massively disappointing. And I think, like you said, the second innings, the fact that, Mackenzie was able to score 147, Brandon King was able to settle in and say 53, just shows us that in that first innings, they essentially all lost their heads. And that points to, as you say, the lack of experience, because even if you take someone like a Brandon King, he hasn't played much first-class cricket, really. So he's not someone who's going to come in and immediately sort of fix that top order. Kurt McKenzie is still young, learning his game. So really and truly, it was an inexperienced side, but it still goes down in the all-time record books, 44 all out. What surprised me the most, Mash, was if that happened in Guyana, the next day, every newspaper would be a blackout. Headlines would just be 44 all out, disgrace. There'd be no other news. I saw one article in the Jamaica Observer mention the 44 all out as if it was a standard, standard sort of score. But there was no sort of outrage. And I guess that again points to sort of, poor results yields lack of interest in cricket at the moment in Jamaica, because I thought there'd be more of an outrage with a 44 all out. Look, comparing how down bad that is in the history of Jamaican cricket, like their worst score ever in the competition that's been running for over 100 years.
I think that just highlights if things are bad off the field, it eventually must seep onto preparation and performance on the field. And I think there's been a general malaise around Jamaica cricket for so long that ultimately 44 all out actually shouldn't be seen as much of a surprise. One thing I do want to say, though, because we don't want to discount the Guyanese performance.
Yeah.
And a message that came to me from some of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast listeners after this match was I'm thinking of a couple people in particular, and I want to address this, Santokie. More than a couple of people, in fact, have said to me in the past, recently, and obviously post this match, Kevlon Anderson should be the next person in the West Indies Test side. Now, the reason why people are saying it is when you study recent West Indies batting performances, I think Kevlon, he's played 18 first-class matches now. I think he averages something like 45, 44. And I think people are looking at the raw numbers and going, well, he's got 400s, one when he was playing in that Headley Week series for West Indies Academy, one versus the emerging island team, was that last year or a couple of years ago, and now 2 this year for Guyana. Now, here's my take on it, Santokie, and I want to see what you say. I'm not discounting Kevlon Anderson at all, and numbers are numbers at the end of the day. Runs are runs. But I want us to learn from our mistakes. I don't want Kevlon Anderson anywhere near a West Indies senior side anytime soon, and certainly not before he's played some 18 cricket. So South Africa are on their way here later this year for some 18 cricket. Kevlon should 1000% be in that side. And then if he's able to score runs across the duration of that series versus South Africa A, then I'm willing to have a conversation about maybe we should consider Kevlon Anderson and da-da-da-da. But I'm tired, Santokie, of looking at regional numbers and then saying, right, they should go straight into the West Indies team, because we've been burnt so many times with this approach that I don't think that helps someone like Kevlon Anderson if there suddenly becomes a groundswell of opinion to be like, let's put him in the test team.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think he'd be a perfect candidate for the A-team tour. Average is 43 for Guyana Harpy Eagles, but he still only played 18 games. Even if you look beyond the statistics, stylistically, he applies himself very well. He looks like a very solid number 3. So that bodes well, him being 24 years old as well. That bodes well for the future if we can put him on the right development path. I completely agree. If you throw him into the test side against Australia, for instance, he's not going to score because no one's going to score in that scenario. But if you put him in the A team, see what he can do, build on that, build on his weaknesses that he may have in his game at an international level, and then he can prosper. But I think Kevin Anderson is definitely one to keep an eye out for in terms of that international caliber player. And it's interesting because he was someone who was out of the Guyana Harpy Eagles setup about 2 years ago, and they paid for him to go and play club cricket in Trinidad for about 3 months. And that's sort of shows you the investment that Guyana are kind of putting in their youngsters at the moment who aren't in the side, kind of getting them out and about in different club leagues and stuff. So I'd like to see that happen more across the region, because without that, Kevin Anderson might not be making the first-class team at the moment. So it's all about that development. And just a shout out, we mentioned him earlier, Ronaldo Ali Mohammed. I think he's got 18 wickets now in the season. He's someone who fell through the gap after under-19 level, has come back, I think he's the only pacer in the top 10 wicket takers at the moment in the regional season. So Ronaldo Ali Mohammed's doing well. Again, we can't jump to any massive conclusions. This has been his breakout season. But I would say at this point, Mash, he warrants a call up for the A-team tour against South Africa again, because he's the only pacer doing bits at the moment in the regional season.
Yeah, I wouldn't be against it. I'm certainly not thinking about anything more than that. But I think I look at this year's regional tournament more so for who should we give an A-team chance to. I'm not looking at it in the context of and who should be playing Test cricket. I just don't think there's any merit to be looking at our tournament like that anymore. I think if I'm the Cricket West Indies higher heads, I'm thinking always about, can I get an A-team tour? That's the next barometer to test our players, not put them straight into the test side, irrespective of how many volumes of runs or wickets they take. But let's move on, Santokie, because there were 4 games. Let's go to Barbados CCC. Barbados, as probably would have been predicted beforehand, won that game comfortably, winning by 10 wickets in the end. But let's talk on the standout performance, not Damel Evelyn's 110 notwithstanding, who he's done quite well this year, to be fair. I think Damel's top 5 at the moment in terms of, it might be 4th or 3rd, in fact, in terms of run scorers overall in the championship. I think he's averaging about 48. He's got 102 50s for CCC, and that's a name that hasn't been on anyone's lips beforehand. So well done to him with his 110. But let's talk on Roston Chase, Santokie. 122 and 7 wickets in the match. Now, we've spent quite a few weeks now looking at Darren Sammy and him talking about XYZ and people talking about white ball players. No one's really mentioned Roston Chase when it comes to, is Darren Sammy going to bring in this player? Is he going to bring in that player? Roston Chase nowadays is seen more as like a white ball specialist. Obviously, he's got 5 test centuries, had a really good start to his test career, then he fell off. What are we saying, Santokie? Roston Chase into the and before people say to me, but Mash, you just said we shouldn't be using the numbers in first class championship. I do think it's different, Santokie, if you already play international cricket in whatever level or in whatever format, and you've got international experience. If you then make runs domestically, I think the metric is slightly different. Yeah. If you come to domestic cricket as an international and beat up on the domestic players. What's about Roston Chase, Santokie?
Yeah, Roston Chase said, respect my name, He came back, and it's what you said on previous episodes, Mash. International players should be coming back and beating up on everyone like Roston Chase did. Century, 7 wickets, no long thing for him. He just took it in his stride. He's someone who, he's kind of fallen down that Moeen Ali kind of pathway where he came in as a batter who could bowl, then suddenly ended up being our frontline spinner and didn't focus on his batting as much. And he sort of fell into a grey area. So he's someone, we know what he can do with the bat and ball as an all-rounder. Some might argue he's been given enough chances in the West Indies side to kind of, do we kind of invest longer term in Kevin Sinclair because of the age route and everything like that? However, I think if Roston Chase plays a few more games, I know he's probably in and around this week, upcoming, and again beats down on the opposition, then I think Roston Chase is warranting a recall. For all we know, he could have been the mystery man Sammy was talking about. You know what?
The money in the bank mystery man.
This mystery man thing's getting wild because I thought it would have been Hope, but Hope wasn't in the squad for this match. So I don't know if it would be Hope. And then I was thinking it might be Carl Mayers because he was named in the squad. I was like, listen, Carl Mayers has been talking to Sammy back in the squad. And Carl Mayers didn't even make the 11. So I don't know if that was injury related or what happened. So this mystery man thing is hotting up. My front runner now, surely it must be Brandon King at this point.
Do you remember that? Do you remember? I think it was 1998. It was a WWE pay-per-view. I think it was called In Your House or something. I'm trying to remember, but do you remember like Stone Cold got injured and they had to have a mystery man to replace him?
It was Savio Vega.
Whether the music hit, it was Savio Vega cuts. Listen, if the mystery man is Roston Chase. You're just gonna hear everyone kissing their teeth across the region, you know.
So yeah, Barbados, and Jason Holder played as well, didn't he? Did he get?
Yeah, he did.
I don't think he got.
In fact, Barbados' team was stacked. Their bowling attack was Holder, Roach, Warwican, Chase. I'm probably missing someone else as well. Probably Chame Holder or whatever.
Roach Simmons, Roach, Raymond Simmons, Matthew Ford, Roston Chase, Jason
Matthew
Holder.
Ford. Yeah, so Barbados' team was effectively an international side. So it's no surprise that they beat down CCC.
And they beat down. They had so much reserves. They lent Shamar Holder to CCC for this game as well. So Shamar Holder was playing for CCC, and maybe Carl Mayers didn't make the squad 11 based on merit because the squad was so stacked. The 11 was so stacked. So we don't know at the moment.
It's worth also, if we're going to talk about Kemlon Anderson, we should also mention Kevin Wickham, another person who I'm looking at for 18 honours. He hit a 95, and it's just worth reminding people that this is back-to-back. Well, not back-to-back. This actually was his first 50 of this year's championship. But Kevin Wickham, obviously, he's played in the A team as well. He's had the academy upbringing as well. Last year, he averaged 50 in the West Indies Championship. Super 50, he averaged 40 or 39 even. So he's another youngster. I think he's only 21, Kevin Wickham. Yeah. So he's another youngster who we may want to invest some stocks in terms of giving an A-team chance to as well. Just a point, though, that was sent to me, Santokie, from Osprey, one of our supporters on the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. He sent this message to me through Discord. He said, when you look at the Barbados innings, in the first innings, Warwican and Chase, between them, bowled over half of the overs that Barbados bowled to CCC. And he was like, what does that say about domestic cricket? Not that he's not making any point about Warwican and Chase not being any good, but more so, we're just bowling spin. Even against CCC, we're just bowling spin. Ramon Simmons and Matthew Ford ain't getting the bulk of the overs to develop them. We're just going, Warwican and Chase, just go spin these men down. And what does that potentially say about our domestic cricket, where every team just goes, I'll just go and spin the man them down, because that's obviously going to work.
Yeah, this has been a problem for years now, and it was posed to Darren Sani, and he kind of said it was to do with the balls, but we know with it's the pitches basically. The pitches, no matter whether you use a Dukes or a Kookaburra, they're going to turn at the moment, and at the moment individuals are benefiting. If you're a spinner, it's particularly a left arm spin in the region, you're loving it at the moment because you're getting all the overs, all the wickets. However, how are we building the paces? How are we developing the paces? And that's a problem I think we're going to have for years to come, Mash, because it's a long-term issue within the region. Let's move on quickly to the next game. Trinidad and Tobago defeated West Indies Academy by 125 runs. Before we get into the Trinidad performances, Mash, we got to talk about Joshua Bishop, because, again, he's someone who's, at the moment, he's moving like Gary Sobers in this regional championship with his left-arm spin, taking bucket loads of wickets. And he scored 102, coming in at 6 or 7, I think, against a strong Trinidad attack that had Jaden Seals, Anderson Phillip. Joshua Bishop, I think, is one who could be the long-term all-rounder for the side, depending on kind of how he elevates himself. But he's someone I would definitely throw into the next 18 tour at home against South Africa, Mesh.
100%. He's an 18 pick for certain. But then this is my issue with Joshua Bishop. Joshua Bishop's 24 years old now, and he's still playing in the West Indies Academy. Now, maybe he's a victim of circumstance. Barbados are so stacked that even if Barbados picked him up, he's not going to play. He's not getting in ahead of Warwican. He's not getting in ahead of Chase, Roach, Holder, Ford, anybody, right? So is it a case now, Santokie? See, the next time we have the franchise system, I think Bishop needs to go to another franchise. He can't keep playing for the academy. Like, at what point do you look at Joshua Bishop and go, yeah, but you're better than the academy level? Do you get where I'm coming from?
Exactly. There has to be, what's the cutoff point? You can't just keep like next year when Joshua Bishop's 25, he can't still be playing for the West Indies Academy because he'd be hindering his own development in the side. It's a development side, but he's someone who's can play in one of the full teams at the moment. So I'd like to see him when they do the draft, him get moved along, or Cricket West Indies try and force a move to somewhere else, so he can play alongside stronger teammates to kind of develop his own game. And also Johan Lane with a 5-wicket haul as well, so another young talent to look out for. But Mash, Trinidad and Tobago, Joshua Da Silva 120 in the first innings. He's someone who's come back from being dropped in Pakistan, and he's come back and he's piled on the runs mash at regional level. That's all we can ask from him at the moment.
That's all you can ask him to do. And the thing is, people now are going to try and contort and make up all kinds of excuses why these runs don't matter. But you have to be, my thing is simple, Santokie. You have to be consistent. Like, so if you're going to say that this man's runs matter, then you can't look at Josh Da Silva's 3 consecutive centuries and go, they don't matter. You could, do you see what I mean? Runs are runs at the end of the day. So if people are going to tell me domestic runs matter, it has to matter for Josh Da Silva as well. Now, let's just say, Santokie, we raised the same argument about Jason Mohammed. Josh has now gone back to back to back to back, right? And I think he's now the 3rd highest run. Mohammed's still top. Who's second? Is Josh second? I don't know if Josh is second or 3rd. But let's say Josh is 3rd, right, in terms of run scorers. Let's just argue that Josh ends the season as the top run scorer in the domestic championship. Then what do you do, Santokie? Is he still the backup bench? Is he still the backup wicket keeper, or do you put him in as a frontline batter?
You'd have to put him in as a frontline batter because you're picking him based on the runs, right? You can't drop Imlak based on that. So if Joshua Da Silva, at the moment he's averaging 93. Based on his 5 innings. If he carries on in that vein and he's averaging thereabouts, or if he's averaging anything over 50 this season, because he's not playing any franchise cricket, so he should have a clear run to play the rest of the games, the remaining 3 games. So if he piles on the runs there, surely Mash, you're picking him as a standalone batter. You
would assume so, but I reckon people are going to get in the comments below and say, nah. He's got to do more than score 3 centuries in a row. But no one else is doing that. Apart from Jason Mohammed, no one else is doing that. So, like I say, where people need to tell me where the line is.
Just to add there, Jonathan Drake's is second for Barbados. Jason Mohammed, this was the first time he didn't score a century in the match, 32, and then a first ball duck in the second innings. He did pick up an injury in the last match, so I'm wondering whether he was fully fit or kind of he didn't have time to prepare for this match. So Jason Mohammed, he's still averaging 128 in the regional season, but he's kind of, I guess the calls for him to make the West Indies side against Australia will be slightly lessened by this performance. And Brian Charles did what Brian Charles does on these pitches. He took 6 wickets in the second innings. Kari Pierre didn't bowl in the second innings. I'm not sure if he got injured or anything like that, but he didn't bowl. He took 3 wickets in the first innings, so he's still currently the leading wicket taker with 29. So, Mash, finally, last but not least, it was a derby as well. Windward Islands picked up what some may say is a surprise win against the Leeward Islands. They've been down bad at the moment. It was a lower order rescue act led by Shadrach Descartes and Ryan John, put over 200 runs on together. Windward's hit 480 all out. O'Shane Thomas, Mash, 4 wickets for the Leeward Islands in this first innings. What would it take for you to say O'Shane Thomas deserves a recall to West Indies international cricket, whether it be A team or senior team, or do you think it's time to move on from O'Shane Thomas?
I'm nearly up. Okay, I'll be frank. I'm nearly at a point where I've given up on O'Shane Thomas. I think I have actually officially given up on him. But if you're saying to me, what would it take? He would have to end the season as one of the top 2 or 3 seamers by the end of the actual season, right? Not because I'm saying, then that therefore guarantees him anything, but that's the bare minimum. If remember, he's got international experience, so he has to play like someone with international experience. So for me, that means he should be aiming to play the rest of the games if he's got the fitness to do so, and then in the top 3 seaming wicket takers in the region, and then I'll have a conversation. I don't think he will, but I would have a conversation if that happened.
And it was good to see Mikhail Louis with the runs, even though it was on the losing cause. 84 in the first innings, 39 in the second innings. But Mash, quite a few people in this match. Alec Afanese, Kavem Hodge, Casey Carty didn't score runs. Well, in the case of the Windward Islands batters, they only got 1 innings. They'll be desperate, these guys, to kind of put on the runs in the next round and the upcoming rounds as well, because essentially their places in the test side are hanging in the balance, and runs can only count in your favour at this point. So there's a lot to keep up for in the upcoming rounds in terms of who can put together big scores, because, we got the likes of Chase, Joshua Da Silva, Jason Mohammed piling on the runs. So they're all staking their claim. So it's up for the current West Indies international test players to kind of put their foot down and lay the marker.
Yeah, and I think it's just worth reminding people of one thing, Santokie. This time last year, Kirk McKenzie had a down horrendous West Indies championship. Like, he was horrible. I think he averaged like 12 by the end of the West Indies Championship, or maybe it was like 17 or something. And I remember you and I doing an episode going, should he really be going to England if he's in such down bad form? Then he went to England and was absolutely horrendous in England. Come the end of this championship, Santokie, I'm putting a marker just to remind the both of us to have that conversation if any of our current top 7 do not perform in the down bad championship. So I'm looking particularly because Craig's already got his runs. Mikael Louis, to his credit, has got a century and backed it up with an 84. Casey Carty don't have any runs to show us, right? Django has got bits and pieces, but nothing, no statement innings, right? Kavem Hodge scored that century in that down bad innings where he scored 75% of the runs, but hasn't done anything else. Ali Cathanace hasn't produced. Justin Graves was being injured. He's just scored the 67 in this match, but no big century. That's your 6. And then Imlak. I think Imlak got some runs in the first game, like maybe an 80 odd or something like that. Or did he score a century? I can't even remember. So I want to just timestamp this, Santokie, and say, let's remember to come back at the end of the competition and say, who of our top 7 was down horrendous? And then we need to be honest. Does that rule them out of playing Australia or not? Because we've made this mistake before. And I guess what I'd ask you to answer before we go, Santokie, when you are an international player, should there be a bare minimum expectation that you score some serious batters, we're talking about, that you score some serious runs in our domestic championship to keep your spot, or is your spot already protected because you're in the West Indies side?
I don't think it should be protected, because if you play a full season in particular and you're not putting up big runs, it means your form is poor, and you're continuing that form by going straight into tests. And it's, as you said, it happened with Kurt McKenzie last year. So I think international players that are playing more than 1 or 2 regional games, really and truly, they should be judged by what they can score, because that's a reflection of their current form, which is more important than anything else. So as you said, Mash, it will be important to see kind of upcoming rounds if these players can kind of lay the marker down. At the moment, I haven't seen the official table, but Guyana and Trinidad are the top 2. They do play each other in the last round, I see. So it is set up for potential title decider. Trinidad haven't won the title in 20 years, so they'll be hyped to kind of get their hands on the trophy. So a lot to watch out for. As always, we'll be back ahead of round 5 to preview it, review it, and then maybe do a video at some point in the future looking at who's staked a claim for the test side against Australia in the summer. So as always, keep an eye out for Caribbean Cricket content, Caribbean Cricket podcast content coming fast and furious. The content plan was still going. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow us, Instagram, X, TikTok, Blue Sky. If you can donate on Patreon, patreon.com/Caribbean Cricket. Any little help is massively appreciated by both of us. So thank you, wherever you are listening to or watching in the world. Thank you, and we'll see you very soon.
Peace, people.
West Indies Cricket, Caribbean Cricket Podcast.